Now, Terry, in our President's State of the Nation address, he was incredibly proud of the social grants that government are doling out to South African citizens. But you say that there's a much different story to tell about these grants.
Well, yes, I think that the grants, are inadequate. Government is handing them out, and in so doing, they're giving people badges of poverty because of the level that they're at. It's wonderful to say that, but the point is that people lose their dignity when they're waiting for handouts. I mean, there's always the argument that some people make who say this creates a dependency syndrome. I don't think it creates a dependency syndrome. If you're getting, say, for example, as a pensioner, 1,350 or 1,370 Rand a month, and you have to look after grandchildren, etc., because so many people are out of work. We have a situation, the same week of that State of the Nation address, we had the latest figures on youth unemployment that came from Stats South Africa. And youth unemployment has increased by the narrow, I love the word, narrow definition. Narrow definition is the minimum that you can fiddle the figures to at 36%, just over 36%, which means in reality half, probably even more, of our young people who are not in education or any form of training are unemployed. Now that's a very dangerous situation.
Keeping in mind that young is under 35.
Yes.
So it's a huge demographic.
It's a massive demographic, but also the point is that we have a very young population. That's where the bulk of the population is. This is why I said at least 50%. In some areas, you've got 80% unemployment. And I mean, is there any wonder that we have, I love the police term, unrest incidents, which could be anything from an illegal march to burning a councillor's house down. It's ridiculous, but it's something we've got to confront. And I don't think that handing out social grants is any answer. It may in fact buy you a few votes at election time, because it's at least something rather than nothing. But in fact, I think in the long term, it's extremely bad and also extremely dangerous.
But Terry, what's the alternative?
The alternative is to look at your entire economy and say, why have we got into this mess? Well, the world's in a mess at the moment, but this is a country which has an incredible amount of mineral resources. We have, for example, some of the finest high-level iron ore. We used to make cocoa pan. I don't know if you know cocoa pans in mines that they push the metal around in. We used to export them. We used to actually make them, export them. Now we import them. Flanges, steel flanges which join metal pipes, etc. Same thing. Now we sell the iron ore from Sishen through Saldanha to India, and they sell us back the flanges. How has all this happened? It's government policy that went completely wrong from 1993 when the decisions were made to scrap any idea of trying to really reform and transform this economy. Taking the political transformation and saying, well, let the economy look after itself, because if we follow this liberal trajectory, it will work. We actually dropped our tariffs beyond even what the World Trade Organization asked us to do, because we were going to be so good, so wonderful to business that they would come flooding in with investment, which never happened. So instead we end up, for example, a few years ago, I'm sure you remember, when Barclays bought Absa. A 30 billion rand investment. Rubbish. It was 30 billion rand to buy a going concern, and from then on, all the dividends would flow out of the country. I worked out that at that stage, given the profits of Absa, etc., it would take about 8 years to recoup the 30 billion, and they still own the bank. So these are problems we have to acknowledge, and we have to go back and say, look, we've got to get people to work. Why don't we have labour-intensive work, which was something put forward, incidentally, by the trade union movement years ago. Build a road, for example. Instead of hauling in Murray and Roberts and saying, bring in your great big machines, etc., bring in thousands of workers, paid a basic wage, but that basic wage goes to buy products which are locally produced. It's not an answer in itself. I don't see that as it's a reformist thing, but it's a reformist idea that's been put forward by the unions. You're not going to radically change society and change the whole economic system, not overnight anyhow, and I can't see that being in prospect. But what is in prospect is what has already been put forward, and in 1996 the trade union movement combined, not just COSATU, but what was then FedSol, which is now FEDUSA, and NACTU, together put forward a very good macroeconomic outline, not very revolutionary, quite reformist, called the Social Equity and Job Creation Document. It's there. That's the sort of thing we should perhaps go back to. But at least we should sit down now and say, look, we've made a mess of things up to now. The world has problems. We have global economic crisis. But at least we can survive better if we change the way we do things.